This is Jason Zhou. You probably know him as AI Jason. He's a professional AI agent builder and product designer. In this podcast, we talk about how to build an AI startup, how O1 is making people thousands of dollars, and how to build anything with Cursor. If you want to turn your AI idea into a startup, this video is perfect for you. So watch until the end. So Jason, what advice do you have for people who want to build their own AI startup?
I think probably there are a few things. There are a lot of the potential ideas about what can you actually build with AI agents or with AI workflows. Firstly, just try to find a problem that you personally experience a lot, that is high frequent and also painful enough that is worth your time. Because the worst part is that you might solve a problem that no one actually end up care about. But that's very general, I guess, to building any type of startups. But what's really, I guess, interesting about the building AI startup is you want to figure out which part of the AI can actually empower and enable. So that's the problem. Like after you identify a problem, just try to build a very quick prototype, I would say.
A lot of people either underestimate or overestimate what AI agents can do, right? Almost nobody has a balanced view, I think. And only the people who really get their hands dirty and actually build with it, they understand it the most. There's like people who think, AI can do everything. There's people who think it's completely useless. Obviously, as with most situations, the truth is somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I agree. Like building some prototype and getting it to the market as soon as possible is one of the best things people can do. Because what I see with a lot of people, they stay in this like idea phase forever. Like they do research, preparation, and they think they have the world's greatest idea, but then as you said, nobody wants to use it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I often talk to people like when I say, oh, my idea is, let's say, fine-tuning a model specific for my use case, which require to have like huge amount of training data to begin with. But instead of like try to spend months to prepare training data, maybe you just try out with like simple strategy, see what the default outcome from the large language model directly. This will speed up the kind of idea to prototype a lot faster as well.
Yeah, there's like solutions that would be perfect, but would take like 1 or 2 years to create, right? Or solutions that would be like 80%, and you can just use, Claude 3.5 Sonnet or GPT-4o, and you can prove it that way. So I think, again, people are always aiming for that perfect thing, but maybe we need the next generation of models to make that happen, right? I think there's a lot of ideas that are possible, just not now, right? So like people can waste maybe. It depends if you take it waste, but they can spend a lot of time developing an idea that isn't ready yet. The classic example is Google Glass, right? It's like the AR glasses from I think 2012 or whatever. It was like way ahead of its time, and now we see that Meta AI is obviously with a much better product is actually creating that possible. Like AR glasses are going to be a thing, but just Google was super early with that. And I think a lot of people are going to be the same with AI agents, where they think like they can automate something really complicated, especially in like content creation, where the creativity part is really missing. I see a lot of possible startups there that I think like I have like thousands of hours with ChatGPT and Claude. I know like I don't think the models can do it. So yeah, I think people either underestimate or overestimate. And also what's funny is that a lot of beginners, they want to build something that is AI powered, but could probably be solved with just raw code. That's also a funny phenomenon I noticed.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you think about it, a lot of startup ideas literally can be achieved with spreadsheets in the old days, right? Yeah. So instead of building your whole platform, you could just build like a spreadsheet with automation. And see does this actually works. So there are a lot of like hacky things you can just quickly prove as well with that.
Real quick, if you want me to help you grow your business, then click the first link in the description. I will be choosing 5 people who make at least $2,000 a month, and I'll help them scale to $40,000 a month and beyond. I've already done it twice myself, so I'm certain I can help you do it too. However, this project is limited to 5 people only, so make sure to fill out the form today. It's the first link in the description. I also think with AI agents, what people don't realize is like reliability is by far the most important. Like the obvious example that everybody uses is the plane tickets, right? Like people think it sounds good to have 99% reliability, right? Oh, it's not 99%. But if every 100 times your AI agent booked a ticket to the wrong country or booked a hotel in a different state or different country, you would not be happy, right? So in reality, we need like 99.9% reliability, if not more, in AI agents. And I think for most use cases, that's simply not the case right now. And people need to realize with their idea, like how quickly do you think you can get to that 99.9%? Because if it's going to take you like 2 years in the AI space, that's like 2 decades or more. So reliability is for sure key.
Yeah, I agree. I think kind of learned it hard way for the past few months because we were trying to build a sales and agent, which is help, let's say, think about if a B2B SaaS, you want to outreach to customers and instead of hiring a person to do that outreach, which takes a long time and training, why not have AI agents who can like you give a list of customer research, outreach, things like that, and also book meeting. One thing we could realize is that use case like that, exactly what you mentioned, it requires really high level of accuracy because it's customer facing. You don't want to mess things up. So those type of use case can still work, but you basically need to find a specific segment of customer who are really high risk tolerance. They are okay with or fully aligned with you. It's not going to do 100%. It's going to 99%, but we accept that. So that's kind of, for this type of use case, you probably will need to find a very specific segment of customer there who can go live with that. Otherwise, you guys just keep stocking at that iterating loop. That's kind of forever going on. So set up expectation correctly with those use cases is very important. On the other hand, what's probably more important is that you probably want to think about what a use case is actually it's okay to mess up for most of customers. Like it didn't require 99% of accuracy. For example, if you're looking at an internal automation process, that's probably a bit easier. If you look at instead of targeting at instead of automate the whole process of, let's say, marketing, writing content, publish content. But if you just do the content generation, but still have human in the loop as part of workflow, then the risk tolerance became much higher. The bar for the going live, let's say go live standard bar, is much lower. So that means you can go live easier as well. So that's kind of I definitely agree. Like the accuracy really depends on, so you really need to use accuracy almost as a benchmark to figure out what a use case is most suitable for your target audience.
If you want lifetime access to New Society, then make sure to follow me on Instagram. All you have to do is like and comment on my free latest posts, and one of you is going to win free lifetime access. My Instagram is linked below. So I guess now is a good time to kind of introduce what your work at Relevance AI is. Like, what's your vision for the startup, for the future, and what you guys are building.
We are building the home of AI workforce. So imagine we basically realize that there are a lot of opportunity for the business to automate their work. And when you look at the traditional automation platform, there are platform like Zapier, or there are platform like Make.com or RPA platform. Those platforms normally really focus on the integration and try to do a kind of point-to-point automation, which means if you have some kind of the trigger or workflow, or some data from system A, and you want to trigger some workflow to system B, and it's a very kind of linear workflow. But with large language model and AI, AI agents, what's really cool about it is that it can start make a lot of fuzzy decisions. And it is able to some sort of more agentic automation that wasn't possible before. And this is kind of not a good platform there yet. So we are trying to build a platform that enable anyone to build kind of agentic workflow easily. So people can build AI agents and then embed this AI agents as people can almost go to Relevance AI to build any sort of AI agents backend and then connect to any sort of front end you need. But on the other hand, we also have a kind of chat UI for people to use and embed on the website directly.
Yeah, I think especially after ChatGPT, people kind of understand the power of a chat UI, right? Like it's much easier to tell the agent what to do in text than know all the settings or keyboard shortcuts, or again how to connect the different integrations. So I definitely think that's good. Like I'm considering adding a chat interface to my app, even though productivity apps usually don't have it, right? Just because people know how to interact with it, it kind of invites more people to use that AI agent. So basically, you're trying to disrupt the Zapier world of automations where you still have to know what to do by making it more easy for, I guess, businesses to automate, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like when you build a workflow, traditional automation, you kind of need to know what is the process there. And you normally pick up those, let's say, super high frequent use case and scenario, because those are the ones that make sense, justify the, let's say, cost to deploy. But what this left out is a huge amount of long tail use case that traditionally very hard to automate. So think about a use case as a meeting schedule scenario. If you want to build a AI system or automation system that can book a meeting for you, traditionally it's actually very hard because people can respond in any sorts of like millions of different ways. When you ask them, hey, what time you want to, they will say, hey, I'm in Singapore today, but UK next week. How about like Thursday? Right. So that's really complicated to automate this kind of long tail use case. But with large language model, this type of more kind of fuzzy decision is very easy to make once you train the agent properly. So these are the kind of use case and workflow that we're kind of more focused on.
And what's your role in the company specifically?
So my background is a product designer. So I actually, so I'm doing a lot of like product design and also was doing a lot of like solution engineer work. Because what do we realize that at the beginning we are building this platform, enable anyone to build agents, and but very quickly we realized that it's so hard to actually build AI agents in production for enterprise. It requires so much upfront training and building. So what do we decide? Like also let's build a kind of flagship use case to showcase the world that this is actually going to work. So that's what we start doing. So internally we have a team to build and deploy AI agents for enterprise use case as well.
Yeah, I think like UI is one of the biggest bottlenecks for AI agents, right? Like we already talked about like reliability, but also what's preventing most businesses and people from having their agents is that it takes some skill, right? Some technical knowledge to build them. So I think we need the same what basically ChatGPT did for LLMs. We need the same for happen with AI agents, where it's just so easy to build an AI agent that it doesn't make sense having one. Same it happened with email as well, right? At the start, only like the real programmers, real OGs of the internet had their own email, even before the internet, right? But after, when it becomes so easy, everybody had it. So I think UI is probably another bottleneck that's kind of preventing AI agents from becoming as popular as ChatGPT, for example.
Yeah, totally. So we actually learned a few things as well. So at the beginning, we kind of, everyone is thinking about like chat UI. So you just like chat to AI agents. But when we look into the automation use case, quite often what they do is not like kind of chat. When I think about chat, it's more like co-pilot use case. So you build AI that can maybe retrieve information, you talk to it. But when we look at a kind of enterprise automation, a lot of them is actually autopilot use case, which means they just you have workflow that you currently have a human to do, but you want to build an AI to let it autonomously doing it and automate the whole process. And for this type of use case, the chat is probably not the main kind of entry point for you. If you have an employee, you don't want to like go and check every single task he was working on, right? So it's more like, so we start introduce different type of experience for people to, let's say, how do I review the agent's task at different level? So for example, we need to design very clear, let's say, human in the loop experience. So when agent needs, how can you easily build a workflow inside your agentic work system so that when it's unsure, it can escalate to human easily. And after escalated, how can human easily give instruction to the agent and so that it know what to do next? And after the agent was given instruction and do the task, how can it actually learn about this interaction from the human so that next time it doesn't need to make the same mistake again. So there are kind of like a lot of UX around the human in the loop experience. And the second part is that, as we mentioned before, we realize that when you have a fully autonomic agentic system running in the production, you actually don't care about chat UI too much at that point, at least from the ones we observe. What do you care about is like, okay, how can I know my agents, how many tasks that my agent actually running for the past 24 hours?
So logs, basically.
Logs and a review system. So we actually introduced quite a smart way for people to like let agent, let's say, label tasks by itself. So if I'm outreach to a prospect who, after research, I realized that high fit versus low fit, the agent will be able to autonomously like tagging and labeling this task, so that later you can come to the system and say, okay, among all the people we outreach, just say how many of them like high fit, how many of them are low fit, and what's that kind of email open rate, reply rate, things like that. So we start building out this kind of analytics system as well, which is quite interesting because when you think about it, it's actually large language model system is doing tasks and then labeling, general reporting for the for the review by autonomously, which is quite different from the traditional kind of dashboard experience. So there are kind of a few things we explore as well, like both in human in the loop experience and how can we enable kind of human to review the work that agent has been done.
Yeah, actually, you kind of gave me an idea to implement myself because I didn't have anything to kind of take care of when. So for context for people, my AI agent is kind of sorting tasks, and I didn't have anything in place where if the confidence score was low, the human would review that. So I just got an idea, like what if I just pop up like a small warning icon or something like that. Let's say if the confidence score is below 5 out of 10 or whatever, then the human can see like the AI agent wasn't certain where to put this task, probably review it. So yeah, I'm definitely going to add that. So thank you for that. My next question is just for people, right? A lot of people watching have their own business, right? They're small, medium-sized business owners, and they're wondering, okay, how should I think about implementing AI agents? What do you think are some of the most obvious use cases that as like small and medium-sized companies should focus on?
Do you mean like the use case that they build for themselves as an internal use case, or more like they build a microservice?
Basically, what do you think is like some of these things where they can get like nearly 100% reliability with AI agents?
Right. So one thing that large language model is really, really good at is that extract insights, extract structured data from unstructured information. So there are a few use cases that we saw is working really well, really reliably, I would say. One is that there are companies have a huge amount of, let's say, customer feedback data or meeting transcript. It's probably a bit harder if you just give the agent, if your expectation is like give agent, let's say, those information and generate a bunch of reports. That expectation, I would say, is probably a bit higher, and you will need to a lot of fine tune to get it right 100%. But if you just give agent a task, let's say this is a meeting transcript, help me extract what's the action item from this meeting transcript, and what are the pain points this customer talked about. That one is really, really good at, and the accuracy is to a level that you probably care. You probably don't need to worry too much that it mess up things or extract things wrong, because just extraction is really good. So from there, you can probably think about use case like how do we enable the sales process after the meeting is finished? Can you just extract information out from meeting and then push those information to CRM so that all those information, so the salesperson don't need to focus on moving things? Or if you have a customer support ticketing system like Intercom, Zapier, you can use this to actually automate process. Whenever a ticket come in, automatically extract the, let's say, categorize this. Is this a bug report, a new feature request, and then triage and routing to the right people. So there are a lot of huge amount of use cases you can think about just about extracting information, structured information from unstructured data, messy data. So that's kind of one big, I would say, big ability that is really reliably, so large language model can really reliably doing. And the second part, I think, is that you can probably observe how people around you are using ChatGPT at the moment. Because there are huge amount of people just hacking things with ChatGPT today. And when you look at it, a lot of workflow is quite messy. So my wife is working in furniture business, like has and not technical at all, but she uses ChatGPT every single week to just build blog posts, basically. So, but when you look at her workflow, is like she will pump all the internal data out from their own CMS or CRM, go to the ChatGPT, and then prompt 3 or 4 times to ask it to get to the result you want. And also maybe go to the SEO website like Ahrefs to get keyword information, keyword ranking information into the ChatGPT so that it can start generating content based on all those information.
So a lot of repetitive actions, basically.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of actions. And so if you just observe how people are using that, you can probably build a microservice, I would say, fairly easily. Might not be $1 billion idea beginning, but I think it should be straightforward if you try to make, let's say, 10 or 50K kind of revenue per monthly revenue. I think that's probably doable if you just looking at those use cases.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a surprising amount of companies that are in that range, right? Like maybe like low 5 figures, mid 5 figures. And a lot of people watching would, give everything to have a $50K per month AI startup. And I think, I don't know who said it, maybe it was Naval Ravikant, who kind of predicted that there will be like 1 billion companies in the future where, thanks to technologies like AI agents, people will be able to start their own company with 0 employees, right? Or maybe you have AI employees like AI agents. But yeah, I think it is absolutely going to be the thing that, let's say a year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to be paying even more for these AI subscriptions because we're going to be using, this one thing that saves us 30 minutes a week, this another thing that kind of optimizes our desktop a bit, organizes tabs, whatever, right? There's going to be so many different, like, as you said, like 10 to 50K companies that are just like super niche. They're not in a multi-billion-dollar market, but they solve a very niche problem that a certain avatar is going to be more than glad to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with the service AI coding trend we saw recently, the entry point became, even you are not building an AI solution, you can just use a solution to build a new kind of the platform pretty easily. And there's one kind of thing I think I was experimenting the other day. So probably kind of similar to the ability to extract structured information from a unstructured data. When you look at with this type of ability, the agent is actually very good at use case, let's say web scraping. It can just look at HTML and figure out, okay, what are the data I care about? And when you go to, I remember I was going to platform like Upwork or something. If you search today, there's still huge amount of hundreds of web scraping jobs there, literally. And it used to take quite a bit amount of time to build every single website scraping because every single website is different, right? But a lot of people didn't realize that you can actually use large language model and build a web agents to literally scrape any website and get information you are. So there are probably opportunities like that as well. You don't even need to provide a software service. You can build an agent that actually delivers the job and sell the job and the work unit as well.
I think this is one of the biggest, like right now, this is not going to exist forever. I think for the next 6 to 12 months, this is one of the most untapped opportunities where people can make like $1,000 there, $2,000 there. Upwork, there's so many things you can just solve with either Claude 3.5 Sonnet or O1. Like there are so many projects where people just offer like $700, $1,500 that if you just put into O1 in 1 to 3 prompts, you would have it built. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so also the extraction part you mentioned, I think that could be very useful with emails, right? A lot of people get, especially if you have like a company or something, you get a lot of emails that are low quality, right? So there's going to be for sure AI agents that can, like you can set custom criteria, right? That this is what I'm looking for. Let's say you get inbound leads and only certain amount of clients, they have to have this type of revenue, they have to live in this country. That is going to be for sure a thing. What do you think is like in the emails department? Because to me, that's kind of obvious. Why hasn't that been like revolutionized yet? It feels like emails are a bit behind still in terms of automation with AI agents.
Yeah, I actually think email is the one use case I saw, at least from the enterprise use case we're looking at it. It's actually something that has been touched a lot. Maybe not consumer side, but on business side, it was done quite a bit. There are a few use cases we saw. One is that we saw a lot of VC company. They were building AI agents to automate their internal process because they got a lot of inbound inquiry. And when you think about it, it's like the volume. It's basically there are tasks that with so much huge volume before that didn't really make sense or couldn't justify the human cost before, because there's such a mix of quality of those things. But with AI agents start making sense for agent to look at millions of those kind of messages and then filter out the ones that need to be handled. So we start seeing some actually workflow are actually deployed into the company, looking at the incoming emails, categorize them based on different based on rules, and then even trigger workflows. So if it's, let's say, a startup company, then it will get an agent to like research about this company. And then extract information like recent funding, team size, is the product already live or not, what type of product it is, what's the revenue model. So you can actually get all those information from the website of this company and then push those information somewhere. So there are a bunch of things happening like that already. I think part of the reason, or at least what we saw at the beginning, was stopping the adoption is that email, if you want agent to take over someone's personal actual email address that they have been using for years, there's a lot of pushback and reluctancy. They don't want to do that, and especially if you actually want agent to not just do the data processing but also taking actions. That's a part that really kind of they're a bit afraid to do so. So but there are some mechanism you can actually implement. For example, you can if you are building an outbound agent, you can build a workflow that agent only handles email they send out, but if it's someone else send the email to this email inbox, ignore that. Or for those type of action, just to kind of more low risk handling. Instead of sending out email directly, just draft that email in your email inbox, so humans still in the loop for every single action. So that's kind of like the thing that we learned that kind of stop people for adopting it. But I definitely think that email is something that has been one use case that very much on the tip to actually drive a lot of adoption.
You mentioned also the recent kind of boom in AI coding, right? Like the last 3-4 months have been insane with the new tools coming out and also the current tools just being massively improved. I think we're legit like 6 to 12 months away from people just typing one sentence and in 30 seconds they have a fully deployed startup that can accept payments on the web. I think it's going to become so easy that literally all of us will be building custom software for the smallest of things. Like right now, you can obviously still build custom software for internally for stuff, but it has to have a certain bar, right? Otherwise, it's a distraction. It's going to be everything. I think in the year, we're just going to have like, oh, it would be cool if we had like a Google Meet internal clone that has a AI agent inside with GPT voice that can answer questions. Boom, in 5 minutes you have it built. I think it's like, do you agree with this? That we're all going to be building. It's going to be so easy to build an entire AI app, any app with AI in about a year or two.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Because I think both you and me have been like diving into the AI coding, and we start seeing this. What's really seeing this new market? Because what's really cool about recent AI coding trend is that let's say the first generation of AI coding, like GitHub Copilot, that's cool. There's kind of auto completion, but the target market is still the programmers. It didn't really unlock new things. But with the cursor and especially Bold, I don't know if you know Bold, Bold on you, they kind of unlock this new market about the people who never know codes. And I actually talked to the founder of Bold on you the other day, and what they are trying to focus on is actually really targeting at those people who are non-coder before.
Interesting.
So, and this actually introduced a lot of like kind of new challenge, I would say, that cursor, because cursor still, to be honest, even though it's a lot of people using that to build those production ready application, it still a bit require like previous knowledge about the coding. But I think Bold.new or maybe some other new breed of company like Replit Agent, they're focusing on those kind of non-technical people. That introduced a huge amount of new UX problem. But he told me it's like people just have a different expectation about what to tell AI. They will give very vague answers. So they are introduced a whole bunch of kind of UX, like automatically improve the prompt for the user, even though they give very vague ones. And like I think actually in one of my previous video, I was for cursor workflow. I was trying to figure out, can we have a standard prompt for standard feature that like login payment that I just need it, but I don't care how it implemented. So there are things that on one hand, probably I think community will come up with those kind of standard AI coding prompt to make those development easier. But on the other hand, I think platform like Bold.new, they will probably do something integrated with Supabase directly and programmatically like set up the data table in your backend, or automatically provide native integration with Stripe. So you just like click on enable payment, everything will be set up for you. So I definitely imagine this will come in 1 year time. We already saw people, we already have kind of like early adopter start learning all those AI coding workflow, do a whole bunch of things, in a very time consuming way. But I expect that we're getting much better.
what you described with the prompts is basically what V0 is doing with Shed C and UI. Like they're taking like pre-built snippets that are proven to work and implementing them based on what the user wants, right? So maybe that is going to be the answer, the unlock for Bolt and Replit Agent is where they try to understand what the user wants roughly and then take like expert prompts or expert snippets of code and then implement that because, otherwise the LLM is going to be confused because it's very easy to, if you're a beginner, to like point the LLM in the wrong direction because the LLM just generates the next token. So it will gladly follow your bad instructions and lead you down a path. And then you're like shaking your fist like, AI models suck. When in fact your prompt was like completely terrible and you confused the AI and it didn't even know what to do. So yeah, I think that's probably among beginners, that's the biggest challenge is that they don't even know how bad their prompts are.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, by the way, I think that's probably one good startup idea there as well. Because currently we have platform like cursor.directory. To be honest, but all the content it has just dot cursor rules. And from my experience, that part, the dot cursor rules wasn't really that helpful. What really helpful, I think, is those kind of the modular prompt that you can just take and then put into your current code base with some prompt that so the agent actually understand, the AI actually understand your project structure so that it can implement those feature into your platform. So that's, I think, a pretty good idea. If someone doing it, I would personally use it a lot, I think. So that's kind of one part. And
so you mean like inserting it as a comment in the code instead of cursor rules?
So cursor rules, I found that is actually the rules you put into cursor rules, cursor actually didn't follow that strictly.
Yeah, so I need to like remind it. I need to remind it stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I found to actually get it work properly, my best practice is for every single feature, I actually have a very specific markdown file. So if I'm implementing let's say a user authentication, I will have a prompt that I use quite often. Inside this prompt, I will explain, okay, this is service you should use. This is the file structure that I expect. And this is the current project structure. So the third section is actually very important because quite often the cursor don't really understand the project structure at the moment. Then it just create a file in the wrong place, wrong dependencies. Yeah. So to actually get cursor following things, I will normally create those specific feature markdown file and then give it to cursor.
And then you tag the specific file.
Exactly. That's probably the best way I found to actually tame it. And if that workflow got to continue, then what is needed is like what are the also different markdown file for specific feature. Because I observe myself actually keep a repository of those prompts for user authentication, for payments, for backup setup, for backend setup. So I would imagine probably mine is not the best. I think since I'm not a professional front end developer, but there are all the other different use case and the scenario that could be pretty standardized.
So I do something slightly different. I use the cursor rules, but I have like these different processes. So I have a process for implementing new features, process for fixing errors, and then I have to still remind it in the actual prompt that to follow the error fixing process or follow the building process. But when I remind it, it does it, right? So like I have different processes for different type of work I do within cursor, but still when I remind it, it does the process. So for me, this is what I found to be like the most time efficient, I guess.
Yeah. So that's good. I guess those are the general rules that it should follow. So I think cursor rules are actually good for those kind of general principle. You should do whatever for different scenario. But on top of that, you can combine that with a feature specific prompt so that it can do the feature with the best practice workflow so that it has less errors.
Okay, so for people who are watching this, most of them are not like senior developers, right? So how would you approach that? Would you like consult with O1 about like how you build a good login feature or good like payments integration, and then take that, put that into Markdown and upload it?
Yeah, I actually have a very specific workflow that I don't think many other people are doing. So basically, what I do is that a few things I observe. One is that cursor at default quite often it didn't really do the planning that well. And second one is that especially if you're using some new package, it's almost guaranteed it will have error because it didn't have the knowledge baked in.
Yeah.
So if you just go to cursor and give it instruction about like this is what I want you to do, then it will often fail. But instead of what I would do is maybe I can quickly share my screen to show you as well.
Of course.
So this is normally what I do when I start a project. So I actually want to generate sorry, not this one. Give me 1 second. Okay, here you go. So this is kind of normally the markdown file I will generate it. Like pretty much like if you're a product manager or product designer, you're pretty familiar with the concept of project requirement doc. It basically includes the whole table of content about what's the overview of product, what are core functionality required, what a file structure. So I will here break down, okay, this is what I try to build, and then break down every single feature. What are the requirements for every single feature? In this part, it also have very detailed instruction about like which package you should use, what are the kind of data points you should get from the API endpoint. And they also list out like this is the final file structure you should work towards, so it understands the dependencies. And then some very specific notes about, here I call additional requirements, but basically are the things that are often observed that cursor might at default ignore or doing things wrong. So, and in the end, I will include the very specific documentation and code example to implement some, let's say, new some feature that using the new package. So this is kind of like the final docs that I will try to get ready before I implement it. But I guess the workflow I think would be interesting is like, how do we actually get to the doc? Because this might feel pretty stunning and a lot of work to actually write this doc. So what I normally do is that I will try to start with a kind of a draft doc. Instead of having this whole thing, I normally just have like a few sections. I will have a section called, let's say, let me check. I think I have a template I can copy, paste over. It normally looks something like this. So I have a project overview, core functionalities, doc, current file structure, and additional requirements. So I normally just write this part, but not very detailed, to be honest. It's some kind of like simple doc. So let me paste in an example I had.
Just a side note, when you mentioned that, people, like when the model doesn't have access to the internet and uses outdated versions, it's so surprising to me how many people still don't understand this. Like it's almost every day I see somebody, asking ChatGPT, like without telling it to browse the web to do something, or Claude, which doesn't have internet access at all. People like need to realize that if the LLM doesn't have internet access and you're asking for something recent, it's going to hallucinate an answer that seems legit, but it's not real. So this is like a super common mistake I see with people.
Yeah, totally. It's actually quite hard, even though sometimes you give the URL and doc, often it still gets things right.
It's crazy. Sometimes it's just like the training data is like so strong, it values it so highly.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I actually always follow this process of doing some pre-work. So I will, if I paste in, like normally I will try to write down this. Basically, I found because with where it is at the moment with large language model, it has all sorts of potential paths to get error. So what I do is like basically peel off those risks and uncertainties by doing those planning early on. So I might just write things like project overview, and then I will write down a kind of like core functionalities instructions. So this might feel a bit stunning, but when you look deep into that, it's really just a list of requirements about what are the core functionalities needed. But these two, I think, are pretty easy to do. But the third one is part, I guess, I will start spending a bit more time. Like basically, I want to include the working code example for the agent or for the cursor about how to use certain packages. So it didn't hallucinate and it didn't like make things make error later. And what I normally do is like, let's say in this case, I want to use Snow Wrap as a kind of package. I will, this is not cursor. I will open cursor instead.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, to use Codium with fear of cursor. That seems illegal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so normally what I would do is that I will go there and then add a doc, which is connect to the doc that I want to use. Then I will just ask it to, let's say.
So do you find the add docs feature reliable? Because from experience, it can be hit or miss as well.
Yeah, not really. This is not reliable at all. That's why I actually do this planning and testing upfront. Because normally what I do is that I will give it prompt like, this is doc, help me build this, let's say, simple type script to do this job. And then I will run it. It will try the best. So it will try its best to read the doc and then get information. But as you mentioned, often it fail. And when I observe that fail, I will personally read the doc and just copy paste the most important part in. But through this process, it will normally start creating some kind of the testing script. Then I can run this and debug this very modular feature until I got the result I want. And after I got the result I want, then I can copy this thing into the doc. And here I can say like code example of how to use snow wrap to fetch Reddit data. So I will pasting this code example that I know is working for my testing, so that cursor don't need to cursor will less likely make a mistake later. So I basically repeat this process.
Just a side note for people watching this is a really good practice to kind of test out every small feature or every change you do, because if you go multiple hours without doing any testing and then something doesn't work, it's like a nightmare to figure out what is causing that issue. So like the more testing you can do in general, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So basically I will repeat this process a few times until I get the very modular code snip working. And when I'm doing this, the benefits is that I actually don't need to worry about how it can interact with other files, where it mess up the things like you mentioned, which will very likely happen if you just go code directly. So I'll do this, and then I will also kind of put in the file structure as well. So normally this is like after I set up the project, because I found often cursor, since it didn't have an understanding about the file structure, which very surprising because I think they should be able to know that pretty easily. I think that's a feature they should definitely add. But
it also seems like it knows, right? Because when you type the prompt and you like control enter, it looks like the graphic kind of tells you like it knows the structure, right? But sometimes it feels like it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely feels it doesn't. That's why at the moment, normally what I do is that I will use that's one package called tree. So tree will be able to generate let's say the file structure for you. So if you are in Node.js project, so I will do tree -L2, which means it will go 2 label deep, and then -I to ignore certain like folders file. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And then this will kind of show you the file structure. This is a bit like Wake, but normally what it will generate is like a actually proper project structure for you. So I can copy paste it over as part of the kind of file structure here.
Yeah, I mean, this becomes more valuable as your project grows, right? It's like with small projects, if you have like 5-7 files, it's not a big deal. But once you have like back and front end folders and like folders within that, it can become confusing.
Yeah, exactly. So I would normally like, let's say here, this one probably bad, but let me see if I can find a better one. So normally for project structure, it will look something like this. After you run it give you like very detailed like project structure, so that it understands the dependency much better in this way. And in the end, I will include some kind of additional requirements. So additional requirements is like based on the type of project you're creating. I found it often can make similar mistakes. And this is one that I have a collection of list of prompts I'm adding here for different projects. Like if it's iOS app, it has like a list of things I want to add. If it's web app, then this is also a list of things I want to add as well. So but if it's web app, I would just paste in the things that I have here, like things like where do you put the components, where which Next.js version we should use, where should we create new page, things like that. So this normally like the first draft, but I often found from my experience, if I just give it directly to the cursor, it's not that great as well. So that's where the O1 comes in my workflow. So I will copy paste this, let's say the basic one, and then I will go to like O1 version. Let me try to find the ones that I used last time.
We still need to see how good the actual full O1 is, because O1 preview is not even the full version.
Yeah, exactly. But I normally will go here, pasting that in, and then ask a few things. Like firstly, I will ask it to figure out the file structure, because I will basically say like this is a feature I needed, and this is the current file structure. Help me like design and architect how this how different files should be exist in my projects based on the feature request. Then it will kind of generate the file structure. And after it gets file structure, then I will ask it to, okay, now great. Now I'll try to generate very detailed product requirement doc that any engineer can just take a look and then start picking up without any ambiguities. So with that, I found O1 is really, really good. You should probably switch to O1 preview and later the full O1. So with that one, this is normally how I get like the final instruction like this, which is very, very detailed and very clear.
But don't you find like sometimes O1 inserts just unnecessary details and that complicate the project a lot?
Yeah, so sometimes it will do. That's why I will, when I ask it to generate file structure, I will put in some specific instruction like try to create as less pages as possible, so that it has a bit more kind of it's less likely to make error on those file structures.
Yeah, that's a good prompt.
Yeah. But yeah, this is kind of my kind of current workflow. You can see this huge amount of upfront planning, but that's kind of the current hack of getting through those different errors and limitations of large language model.
Yeah, just one caveat to that I would put for beginners watching this: you actually want to make sure you don't get stuck in the planning phase, because you might spend you, Jason, are compared to the average viewer, you're like a genius programmer, right? So you might spend a few hours building that, but you're going to get to the building phase. A lot of people are like, okay, I still need to do more research. I still need to watch more videos. I still need to ask Perplexity. And then they're like, oh, Perplexity gave me a different answer than ChatGPT. Which framework should I use? So one big caveat I had for people watching this: don't get stuck in the preparation phase forever, right? Don't skip it for sure. Do some prep. You need some clarity about what you're building, but get to the building part, because if you don't, you're never going to make it.
Yeah, totally. Like you should build, like this project looks long, but part of that is actually I want to get built as fast as possible, because
yes.
I will ask it to build a small building block. So I know, especially the part that is more complicated, you want to test to understand, does this part actually work? Because otherwise, the rest actually doesn't even matter. So yeah, I totally agree.
So I want to ask a selfish question. Would you recommend me building fully the backend, like the AI functionality first, and then try to connect the front end? I mean, I already have like a basic design with V0, but I don't have it connected with the backend. Or would you recommend me build both at the same time?
Yeah. So my personal workflow is actually I try to use Cursor to build the whole functionality first.
Okay.
And then I basically, so when you go to Cursor, it will actually help you build a whole functionality, whole page. Even the page looks not as good, but I just don't care at the beginning. I just want to build the whole functionality. And later, because if you're building a web app, it basically will create a bunch of page for you, right? That's the time actually I start using V0. So I will just copy paste page by page and ask, okay, now try to make this page look a lot better and keep the style the same. So that's kind of my workflow, because I basically just want to separate. Cursor just focus on functionalities because it is really good at it, and then V0 do the front end. But if I do the other way around, which I know actually is pretty popular kind of workflow, my challenge is that is for building more complicated projects, I found it's actually make it a bit difficult, because in V0, I believe it only create like one single page. But often you will need the whole project.
Yeah, that's what I found. Like I started with V0, then it was like 600 lines of code, including some of the functionality. I was had to slowly remove it, put it into the backend, and update stuff. It was like yeah, maybe it's good practice to stick to like less than 200 lines, and then probably your approach is definitely better. Just have cursor build everything, forget about like looking nice, just focus on the actual functionality so that it works. And once you're happy with how the app works, then you can start polishing the UI and making it easier to use. So I'm definitely gonna do that, because right now I have like a solid UI and a solid backend and a complete disconnect. I'm wondering like, should I, because I want to keep building the agent, right? I want to keep building the Python backend. That's what I like to do. But then still I need to connect the front end, otherwise it's not an app. So I'm like wondering whether I should do it. And like, I think you just answered it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, there is.
So any final advice for people who are new to AI or new to AI agents?
I think my probably specific for AI agents, one is that I found is sometimes it's easy to get into the feeling of, let's say, shiny toy kind of experience. You saw a new framework launch every day, and you want to
Yes.
like, okay, which one I should use. But what I found is really useful is actually just build a agent. Don't use any framework from scratch.
Yes.
And then you actually understand it's actually not as scary. All those frameworks, they just package things together in all sorts kind of planning that they think is useful, but maybe not. So just build a extremely basic function calling agent by yourself by just calling OpenAI API directly. You will get so much better understanding about all those new frameworks and which one will actually work for your use case. So that's probably my kind of one suggestion for people who are building agents.
Man, I couldn't agree more. Like I started with frameworks and now I never use them. I just do direct API calls to OpenAI or Anthropic. It just gives you complete control, and I think you can never go back. But anyways,
Yeah.
Jason, I appreciate taking you the time. I think it was a super great episode. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the viewers have as well. I'm gonna link your channel and your community below the video so people can check it out. And yeah, thank you for taking the time, man.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day, man. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.